surge in fiancée's fury shattered my father's urn, scattering ashes of my past and casting doubt on our future. So we are two ladies that been dating for 7 years, and engaged a year ago. My fiancée, let's call her Anne, 27F, and I, 29F, mortgaged a flat together after we got engaged. Before that we lived together for 4 years. We are not planning the wedding just yet because both of us are in the middle of a career run and trying to get to a more comfortable spot first. For a bit of context, she is a surgeon, trainee at the moment. I am working in a veterinary tech company as engineer. Both of us have quite stressful life and career, and we are ambitious. We are child-free, so kid is never on our horizon. So far our relationship had been pretty good besides one period of rough patch, and it was during the pandemic. It was a very crazy time for her, and couldn't come home for a long period of time. I was forced to stay at home like everyone else. I took over all the household stuffs and cooking, made her lunch and dinner to take to work. Both her mother and brother got COVID and she couldn't leave to visit them. So I drove up to Scotland during a relatively safe period to stay with my future mill and helped her navigate it through the treatment. While my bill in quarantine, I also pay for my bill and his wife's 1 month rent because they both lost their jobs. 2 months later both mill and bill recovered. During the whole pandemic, she took her stress out on me. I hate fighting and I am non-confrontational. If there's any sign of things going to get heated, I would put my hands up, asked for some sorts of a timeout so both of us can walk away from the moments, not avoiding the topic, but to calm down, think it through, before sitting down to have a civil conversation about our issues. That's how I always do it and Anne knows that, but during the pandemic, she was just relentlessness with her, nagging and berating. Every tiniest inconvenience triggered her, every minor issue gave her a bad day and everything was my fault. I knew during that period, her life was a living hell because of the pandemic, and she, like many healthcare workers, were severely overworked, underpaid, overly stressed and couldn't see their own families, not to mention constantly running the risks of catching COVID on the front line themselves. And I tried to be as supportive as possible, and kinda accepted her insults and meltdowns without saying much. I grew up having a very naggy mom, so I had mastered the arts of pretending I am listening, with words come into my left ear, and leave from my right ear, and when at times, things do get too much, I would try to walk away, couldn't go on the streets anymore, which means I couldn't really get away from her. I would lock myself in the loo, and would be calling me all sorts of names through the door. Coward was her favorite, literally just hopping for a fight, asking me to argue with her, but eventually she would calm down and I would always let her know that she can't just use me as a punching bag. She would apologize, we would talk through whatever issues we were having like adults. Things would be good for a while, before she found reasons to scream at me once again. In the middle of the pandemic, I also lost my job because the company I worked for went bankrupted, and at the end stage of the period, I found a new job, a job that I personally enjoy. As the pandemic ends, everything with Anne was good again. She was able to take a 2 weeks break and my new job hadn't started yet, so we went on a nice and romantic holiday. There were times she still come home, angry over something at work and took it out on me, but wasn't as often. And during the first Valentina's Day after the pandemic, she wrote me this sweet letter, apologizing for her behavior during that stressful period, thanked me for being supportive and helped her mother and brother, her brother and sister-in-law also repay the rent. All was well and good. This is why last year I proposed to her and she accepted. We bought a flat together, and in my home office, I have a heavy cabinet nailed to the wall with glass doors, mostly for books and my Lego display, but on the top of the shelf, I have my father's urn. He passed away when I was young, next to 3 smaller urns that belonged to my late cats. I reinforced those urns with doubled side tapes and, particularly, my father's urn comes with this metal plate that I screwed down on the shelf. My mom used to keep that urn in our family home. A bit of context, I am from Hong Kong, to Chinese parents. My mother still lived with my paternal grandmother, my father's mother. My mother personally decided that she would never remarried, took care of her in-laws after my father's death. Mom also has a long-time boyfriend who is a widower as well. My grandmother, who is in her late 90s about to turn 100, has Alzheimer and mobility issue, where she has the tendency of wander off the bed at night, tried to leave the house and bumped into things. At one point she took down my grandfather, her husband, urn and just scattered the ashes like bird feed, and almost bring down a shelf with those urns. So my mother asked me to take my father to the UK with me, just to keep it safe. It might sound a bit morbid, but with her boyfriend having British citizenship as well, my mother's plan was to retire to the UK with her boyfriend once my grandmother passed, to stay close with me but not living with us. Thank goodness. So I took the urn and kept it nice and safe on the shelf with my late cats. So yesterday, I was able to work from home and Anne's car was in the shop to get the tires changed. She get off work at 7 p.m. and when I got to the hospital to pick her up, she texted me and said that she will be late because there were some incidents nearby, which I happened to drive past the aftermath when I was heading to the hospital. The thing is, in the morning I have a video conference meeting with someone overseas at work. I have to be there at 5 a.m., so I had to wake up at 4 the latest. I waited at a nearby pub till 11, just drinking soda and ate some food, and I couldn't reach out to her, because Anne was probably in the theater. So at 11, I decided to go home. I texted her a message, let her know that I would be taking a taxi home. I left the car key to her coworker whom dropped the key in her locker, so she can drive home with my car. I texted her goodnight before I hit the bed, and within 2 hours, I was woken up by her coming into the bedroom, slamming the door and absolutely furious because I dumped her at the car park. She knew I had a 5 o'clock meeting since 3 days ago. What was I supposed to do? Sleep in the car? She started screaming and cussing at me once again, saying how I broke her trust. I should have waited. I left her stranded in the middle of the night. I don't support her work, etc. She woke me up around 2:45, demanded me to sit on the toilet cover while she took shower, so she could continue lecture and yell at me. She wouldn't even let me talk. I was so tired and exhausted I simply didn't have the energy to defend myself, so I just kept apologizing. An hour and a half later I told Anne that I need to get ready and go. Can we talk about it once I am back? She refused to let me go, psychically blocked the front door and shoved me back, practically taunted me to fight back, saying things like fight back your F-King CT, you don't walk away from me. Pooh, why? So I back off, raised my hands and turn away to the patio door. We have another access point to the lift from the terrace. It's a bit of a weird design, but through my office there's a door to the terrace, and on our terrace, another door can bring us to the lift hall. I just want to get out of the flat, and I know an hour or two later, and would calm down. This just happened too often at this point. It's almost predictable. I walked away from her into my office. She chased after me, and somewhere down the line, she picked up my tablet and hurled it at me. It missed. I don't think she intentionally tried to hit me, just trying to make enough sounds and surprises to get my attention. But it hit the cabinet in my office. The tablet broke through the glass door, the 2 tallest shelves popped off, cracked, and all the books fell. It brought down the entire cabinet off the wall. The nails pulled some holes on the wall and everything just came crashing down. The urns scattered all over the place. My father's urn was cracked and broken before it even touched the ground, and tried to catch them with me, but it was all too late. My whole office is covered with ashes from my own father and 3 cats. I was beyond furious and heartbroken. I think I had never been this angry before. My entire body was shaking. I am still shaking as I am typing this. I am pretty sure I completely lost it at the moment. I shoved Anne out of the office when she kept trying to apologize. She held onto the frame and it turned into a bit of a struggle. I took her fingers off the frame one by one before slamming the door so hard that it came off the hatches. I screamed through the door and told her to shut the hell up because I don't want to hear any of it. I collected all the ashes I could gather up into a bag, and left the house without saying anything else. I went to work like a mess, with the ashes in my coat, did what I have to do and immediately took the rest of the day off. There's no way to tell from the ashes who's who from what I have researched so far. I brought 4 new urns and just split the ashes in the car. It's not just about my father. My cats meant everything to me when I was younger, all alone in a country that I know no one, and struggled to cope with my dad's death. I am in a hotel, couldn't sleep, I don't want to go home. I turned off my phone because Anne wouldn't stop calling and texting me. My coworker had informed me that after I left, she came to the office at lunchtime with food, looking for me. I felt like I can just scream at any moment like a madman, and wanted to punch my windows so much. Even after hours I hate Anne so much for doing this. I know that early in yesterday's morning, I indeed screwed up for leaving Anne stranded at 2 a.m., put her in a vulnerable spot in the middle of the city, but it doesn't justify her throwing shits at the urns. I don't want to break up with her. I love her, and aside from this issue, we are good together, but I don't know how long I can go on, when every time she is emotional, she leaves no quarter and heroically pushed me with my back against the wall, demanding to argue and sort it out like 2 cavemen. I thought she changed after the pandemic, but now I'm afraid this is just how she is every time she dealt with stress and pressure. I never got physical like that, and I could tell Anne was genuinely scared of me at that moment. It was like something snapped inside me and my body turned into a furnace, and I am afraid that if I didn't leave the house soon enough, I might have slapped or hit her, and actually called my mom at the crack of dawn at her time, apologized and cried over the ashes. So now my mom knows, and she is furious at me, more so at Anne, because I was supposed to protect my father's urn from my old granny, but I let this happen. Then there's Anne's mother, brother and Sil, constantly emailing me and looking for me on Facebook, apologized on her behalf and told me to come home. I let my future Mill knows that I am in a hotel and I just need some peace and quiet and not to be bothered, just so she can tell Anne and no one needs to worry. Mill respect that and haven't bothered me ever since. I might extend my hotel stay for another day. I don't know what to do. My blood boil every time I think about the moment, but I also feel sad and heartbroken because I don't want to end this relationship, yet at the same time, it feels like that's the right thing to do if she doesn't change how she is every time she got stresses and took it out on me. I don't know, I am a mess. I guess I just want to vent. Update 1. To clarify a few things, she wasn't hurling the tablet at me. I was standing about 1.5 meters from the cabinet. It went extremely wide if she was aiming at me. She said she was aiming at the wall next to the cabinet. It's a big wall where the cabinet blocked half of it. I should have worded better. I gave the key to Anne's coworker. The coworker has access to the same locker room as Anne, and Anne tends to keep hers unlocked, so the coworker just dropped the key in her locker. She drove home with my car herself. I used the word stranded because that's what she said. I switched urns of my cats 2 months ago because one of the urns was cracking, and I ordered 3 custom-made urns that designed after them. I don't know why my father's ashes weren't in a bag. I never opened it before. I seen people suggesting therapies, which I didn't mention initially, but I had been doing therapy since 5 years ago, individually, for PTSD. Without going into too much details, I lost my father when I was 10. I was there to witness not just his death, but also a taxi driver, my aunt and my 10 months old cousin. It was violent and I was the only one that survived. At that time, where I am from, PTSD, trauma-related topics and mental illnesses, just weren't talked about that often. It's considered taboo and some ignorant idiots, to these days, would still say that you are using this as an excuse to be lazy and problematic. It's a whole other can of worms to open. It was years later, when I was studying overseas, that I looked into the possibilities of myself having PTSD. I was struggling to sleep constantly, so I started talking to some professionals. Took me a while to find a good therapist, and I have been visiting her for 5 years now. I am sleeping a lot better, feel a lot more productive and comfortable, no longer need to take any pill, and the nightmares are rare occurrences. Talking therapy constantly touched on my issue with my mother. We didn't have the best relationship, only until the last decade that we got a lot closer and reconnected, or when I moved overseas to study. She also came to accept that I am gay, and my little brother and I remained frosty and cold. It all stemmed from ridiculous Chinese tradition idea of son better than daughter, toxic grandfather that threw my pet turtle off the window from high-rise building, and my mum got swept up into this idea. Think of Ross and Monica and their mother in Friends, but worse version. I had mastered the arts of pretend to listen, which now I think about it, might be the reason why I didn't really register what and said was truly abusive. Until now, in some ways I always knew this isn't right. What happened between me and my mother can apply to me and Ann too, only in a much bigger and abusive severity. As I said, Mum loves to nag, loves to compare me to my perfect brother, or someone else's sons. Over the years, I had this coping mechanism. When Mom or my grandfather started saying shits like that, I dissociated and shut myself from what they said. I cut myself off from emotions and reactions almost like a switch, to turn indifferent, unbothered and uncaring, because I came to learn that responding or allowing it to affect me wouldn't do me any good. My mother loves to sit me down at the table and just started nagging, never scream, but constant lecturing and nagging about this and that. I would stare into the distance, not every so often, and in my head, replaying scenes of Harry Potter movies or imaging I was playing League of Legends, or something like that, and that's exactly what I did within years later, same exact way. Once you dissociate yourself good enough, you don't see what's in front of you, you don't hear the screaming and yelling, you just lost yourself in whatever you played in your mind. I don't even have enough cares to feel anger or fight back. I think that's the issue when it comes to Anne. She just took advantages of it and got more and more severed, and I bloody lost it yesterday. I am heading into therapy today for my regular PTSD session. I will talk to my therapist about this, see if she has anyone good that she can recommend. Look for an extra specialist to help me with my other issues. Maybe they will have better ways to explain this than me, but either way I need to work on myself and this dissociated from conflicts thing. I don't even know what's that called. It all felt so natural and made sense back then with her. Now nothing made sense to me. She simply wasn't like that in our first 3 years. I don't know if something changed, like becoming a full-fledged professional in a stressful career, or she is always like that and somehow only show herself a couple years down the line, or maybe because of how I deal with argument and conflicts, she took advantages of it to an extreme. I am planning to stay in the hotel for a couple more days, just to get my affairs sorted, like finding new place to stay, and talk to my lawyers. I am breaking things off, if and changes for the better in the future, perhaps, I don't know, don't have much high hopes for it, and I am not going to wait. Update 2. Let's start with Anne. She hasn't reached out to me directly since the last update, but her family has been relentless. Her mother and brother have sent me numerous messages, some with heartfelt apologies, others with a sense of frustration, as if I should just forgive and move on. Her mother even tried to visit me at the hotel. I had to lie and say I was out. It seems they're all on the same page, and is so sorry for what happened, and they want me to come home. I had a long talk with Anne's mother, over the phone, of course, and she's under the impression that this is just a big misunderstanding. I told her how I felt, that this wasn't just a one-time outburst, but a pattern that had been building for years. I explained the emotional toll it has taken on me, and how I'm scared to go back because of the anger and resentment I've accumulated. She didn't fully understand. Honestly, I don't think she can. She's seen Anne as a golden child for so long, and this behavior has been hidden from her. The concept of emotional abuse doesn't seem to click with her. Anne has also tried to call me, but I've ignored every single call. There's been no apology from her, no recognition that this is deeper than just a bad argument. And this is where I've come to a massive realization. My whole life, I've been bending myself out of shape for other people's comfort. It started with my mom, and it continued with Anne. I've always been the peacemaker, the one who walks away, the one who does everything for everyone around me, just so they could feel better. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. For the first time in years, I'm actually really reflecting on who I am outside of my relationship. I've spent so many years bending over backward for Anne, ignoring red flags because I loved her, because I thought we could overcome everything. And look where I am now, shaking in a hotel room, trying to pick up the pieces of my life. I've been in therapy for my PTSD, as mentioned before, and I've been talking through a lot of things with my therapist about this relationship. I've learned a lot about myself in the last few days. The dissociation, the shutting off during arguments, that's my coping mechanism. It's how I survived my childhood trauma, but it's not healthy, and it's certainly not helping me now. Anne saw this as an opportunity to manipulate me, and I let her. But I'm done with that. One of the most freeing things I've done in this entire process is admit that I'm not going back to her. I don't know what that means yet, whether I'm completely done with a relationship, or if I'll just take a huge break, but I can't keep running back into the same cycle. I can't keep letting myself get hurt just because I don't want to deal with conflict or make someone else uncomfortable. I've been doing that my whole life. After the urn incident, my entire perspective has shifted. It's not about the urns. It's about the fact that Anne destroyed something sacred to me without a second thought. She didn't just break some objects. She shattered my trust, my sense of safety, and my emotional boundaries. It wasn't about the argument itself, it was the way she handled it, the way she used her anger as a weapon, and the way she disregarded my feelings. The thing is, though, even though I'm angry, even though I'm heartbroken, I don't want to see her as a villain. She's not a bad person, she's a very broken person. And for the first time, I'm realizing that her trauma, her issues, have played a huge role in this. But it's not my responsibility to fix her. I can't keep playing the role of caretaker, therapist, or emotional punching bag. I've been in touch with a lawyer about separation and the potential for a peaceful split. I'm hoping that I can figure out some way to move forward with my life without getting into a lengthy, drawn-out process. I'm still unsure of what the next steps will look like, but I do know that I need to heal. I can't focus on Anne's healing anymore, this time is for me. My mother is understandably furious. She's upset at Anne for what happened, but she's also angry with me for allowing it to get this far. She's worried about me, but she's also very much on my side. We've had some long talks, and she's been encouraging me to stay strong, reminding me that I'm worth more than what I've been putting up with. Here's the kicker, though, Anne called me today. I didn't answer, of course, but she left a message. She's finally acknowledging the gravity of what happened. But here's the thing, I don't believe her. The apology sounds rehearsed. I'm not sure if she's truly sorry or just sorry that she's losing me. I can't keep forgiving someone every time they break me, so, I'm taking things one day at a time. I've reached out to a support group for women in emotionally abusive relationships, and I've been meeting some amazing people who have gone through similar experiences. It's validating and healing to know I'm not alone in this. I'm also planning to move out of the hotel in a few days and into a small apartment. It's not much, but it's mine, and it's a place where I can feel safe. I've already started looking for new jobs, and I'm trying to re-establish my sense of independence. I don't want to just survive, I want to thrive again. I don't know what's next, and I'm still grieving the loss of the person I thought I knew. But I'm done sacrificing myself for the sake of anyone else's comfort. It's time for me to start living for me. Update 3. I took a couple of days to really just process everything and figure out my next steps. I stayed in the hotel for a little longer, and it was mostly just me, my thoughts, and some of the most painful reflection I've ever had to do. In between feeling utterly heartbroken, disgusted, and betrayed, I was also realizing that there's a lot of personal growth I need to do as well. My therapist was a huge help with this, and I was able to finally put words to what has been festering inside me for years. She didn't sugarcoat it, she's blunt and honest, and told me that I've been dissociating for so long that it's almost like I've been numbing myself to my own life. That's exactly how I've coped, just like I did with my family, and in a way, Anne's behavior triggered that same old response. When I think back, the warning signs were always there, but I ignored them. My therapist says that I need to learn how to truly process and feel, not just let it wash over me. Easier said than done, but I'm starting to understand it. I also spoke with my lawyers. Yes, I've come to the difficult decision that I need to break up with Anne. There's no other way around it. I love her, but the damage is too deep, and I can't keep going in circles, hoping for change when it feels like I'm just being used as a punching bag every time she's stressed. The urn incident made me realize something. It wasn't just the urns that were destroyed that night. It was everything, our relationship, my trust, my peace. And honestly, I can't rebuild that. So, I'm in the process of figuring out the logistics of moving out. I've found a place to stay temporarily, and I'll be getting the necessary legal matters squared away in the next few days. I'm not going back to the flat. That chapter is closed, and as much as it hurts to admit, I can't continue to sacrifice myself for the sake of what could be or for the good times we had before. The truth is, I've been living in the shadow of what was, instead of facing what is right now. And has been trying to reach out to me constantly. The calls, the texts, even coming to my workplace, I know she's sorry. I know she's broken up about everything, and deep down, I believe she's genuinely remorseful. But it's not enough. It's too little, too late. There's a pattern here that can't be ignored anymore. I've tried talking to her, tried rationalizing, but the damage done is irreparable at this point. I don't have the energy to carry her anymore. I've been the emotional punching bag for so long that I've forgotten what it feels like to be supported, to be cared for in a way that doesn't involve me constantly forgiving, excusing, or tolerating abuse. I do think that Anne has some major issues that she's never truly dealt with. She's always been under a lot of pressure with her career, and while I understood that, it doesn't give anyone the right to treat their partner like crap when they're stressed. I can't be the scapegoat anymore, and I've realized that it's not my responsibility to save her. I've done enough. As for the urns, I'll be honest, I haven't had the strength to even look at them yet. It's still too raw. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at that cabinet again. The damage to those urns, especially my father's urn, it's like losing him all over again. It's just too much. I'm still staying at the hotel for a few more days while I pack up my things. I haven't told Anne about my decision yet. I know it's going to break her, but at this point, I need to put myself first. I need to start healing. I need to be whole again. I'm so grateful for the support I've received, especially from the people who shared their own stories with me. It's comforting to know that I'm not alone in this, and that there are others who have gone through similar struggles.